Week 14 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first hitter, Francisco Alvarez of the New York Mets. This Met team, they definitely turned their season around ever since Alvarez returned from the injured list a few weeks ago. And Alvarez, one of the best hitters in the last month of the season around the league. On the year, 4 home runs, 23 RBI, 16 runs scored, a stolen base, a 301 average, and a 371 on base. Alvarez, he's tearing the cover off the ball. Like I said, this New York Mets team, they've really taken off since he returned from injury. And obviously, he's a catcher where I think you could get peak value for him, because last season he did hit 25 home runs and the 63 RBIs, but a 209 average. So I believe Alvarez is hitting a little bit over his head right now for this Met team. And while he's white hot, he's a perfect sell-high candidate, and I think you get a pitcher and possibly a bat for him. So the last couple weeks, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 471 average, and a 558 on base. So he's been on a tear as Alvarez. It seems like he's getting 2 or 3 hits per game for this Met team. But like I said, last season, teams, they were getting them out pretty easy towards the second half of the year, where he gassed out a little as Alvarez. So who knows if that'll happen again. But like I said, I think you can get a lot for him, especially that he's a catcher. June 26th versus the Yankees, 3 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored. June 28th versus Houston, 1 for 2, a run and a rib. June 29th versus Houston, 0 for 5. And July 1st at the Nats, 2 for 5, a run and 3 RBIs. And a great season is Alvarez, even though he missed close to 2 months for this New York Met team. But like I said, I just don't see him keeping it up at this high of a rate in his second season in the major leagues, even though he's one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball a few years ago. But right now, he's a sell-high candidate. Next hitter is his teammate, Brandon Nimmo of the New York Mets. And Nimmo, he's been on a tear, especially with the power and the batting average over the last month of the season. But now he's been banged up, where he had an accident in his hotel room. He slipped and he cut his forehead open. So on the season for Nimmo, 13 home runs, 50 RBIs, 53 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 247 average, and a 367 on base. So we always knew Brandon Nimmo was a good on-base guy. Last season, 363. He's a 260, 270 average hitter, but the power's really gone up over the last couple of years. And already this season, I know they've moved him around the lineup second and third at times, where he has 50 RBIs, and last season only 68 leadoff. It's 2 weeks for Nimmo. He's been white hot as well, and this is why this New York Met team is on a nice run that they're on with Alvarez, Vientos, JD Martinez. All these guys are hitting at the same time. So the last 2 weeks, 6 home runs, 15 RBIs, 16 runs scored, a 333 average, and a 462 on base. So Nimmo, I don't think it's going to hold up for him, the power he's showing. And obviously, the last couple weeks he's had for fantasy owners. And right now, well, he's at peak value. He's a perfect sell-high candidate. And possibly this fall could do him in as well, where he could struggle. June 26th versus the Yankees, 0 for 3, 2 runs scored. June 28th versus Houston, 0 for 2. June 29th versus Houston, 1 for 5 with a run and an RBI. And June 30th versus Houston, 3 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. So right now, while Nimmo's playing great baseball and doing a little bit of everything for the Mets and fantasy owners, he's a sell-high candidate this week. Next hit is Alec Burleson of the St. Louis Cardinals. So Burleson, he's been on a tear over the last few weeks here, and one of the better hitters in fantasy baseball. But I don't believe it's going to keep up at the levels he's hitting right now as Burleson. And like I say a lot in my videos, there's always a couple players you see every season that you pick up off the wire. They stay hot for a couple months, and then you sell them off. Or while they're in the peak and you don't believe they're going to keep it up, you sell them off and get good value. And that's exactly what I think I would do with Burleson. On the season, 12 home runs, 38 RBIs, 32 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 278 average, and a 312 on base. And over the last 2 weeks, 3 home runs, 14 RBIs, 11 runs scored, 304 average, and a 346 on base. He's playing great baseball. He's top of the order over here for St. Louis, batting second or third usually is Burleson. And he's definitely played this Cardinal team back into playoff contention as one of the wild card teams, having a big month and a half. June 27th versus the Reds, 0 for 4. June 28th versus the Reds, 0 for 2 in RBI. June 29th versus the Reds, 0 for 5. And June 30th versus the Reds, 1 for 3 with an RBI. So like I said, Burleson's starting to cool off a little bit. And hitters, you know they're going to go through peaks and valleys, but Burleson was never a big-time prospect, and he doesn't really have a big track record as well in the major league. So right now, well, he's been playing great pretty much the whole season, and especially over the last 2 weeks of the season. I believe you could get a starting pitcher in a deal for Burleson, and with his versatility at first and outfield as well, could help you get more value from him. The next hit is Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles. Cedric Mullins, last season, it wasn't a great year. And for the majority of this season, it hasn't been a great year for him as well in terms of batting average. But stolen bases, runs scored, and some pop, he's going to give you his Mullins. On the year, 9 home runs, 28 RBIs, 38 runs scored, 16 stolen bases, but an awful .218 average and a nothing .262 on base percentage. But over the last 2 weeks, he's turned it around. 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 9 runs scored, a .368 average, and a .385 on base. So Mullins, he's a free swinger. He's not going to draw a lot of walks. He's going to swing early in the count. And right now, he's on a hot streak and showing some pop, no doubt about it. But I believe this Baltimore team, they got tons of prospects still down there. And even guys on the Major League roster like Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad, who's not playing every day. And Mullins is just holding on. Everyday job for now. So right now, well, he's been hot, but still, like I said, his ceiling is pretty much a .220, .230 average. He'll get you the 20 stolen bases to 30 stolen base range most seasons. He is. Mullins, especially, he's on pace for about 30, 35 bags. And also, he'll hit about 15, 20 homers, but he's an inconsistent hitter. And with these young rookies, that definitely can help this Baltimore team take the next step and the next level. I don't think Mullins will have the starting job the whole season. And like I said, they got a whole farm of prospects as well. June 26th versus the Guardians, 2 for 3, a homer and RBI. June 27th versus the Rangers, 3 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. June 28th versus the Rangers, 0 for 3. And June 29th versus the Rangers, 0 for 3. So like I said, Mullins playing great baseball, one of the hottest hitters in all fantasy baseball over the last 2 weeks here. But I think the other shoes are going to drop. And with Heston Kjerstad and Colton Cowser are in and out of the lineup, I believe those guys, they're going to find a job one way or another, and it could mean Cedric Mullins is going to lose playing time. So right now, he's a sell-high hitter this week, and the final hitter I look to sell in trades, Jonathan India of the Cincinnati Reds. So India, his rookie season was a great year. Then last year, took a step back a little bit, 17 homers, 61 RBIs, 14 bags with a .244. So this year, 5 home runs, 34 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 38 runs scored, a .278 average, and a .381 on base. But over the last month of the season, where he's got a majority of his stats, 2 home runs, 16 RBIs, 19 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a .380 average, and a .454 on base. And even to dig deeper, last 2 weeks, been one of the hottest hitters in Major League Baseball. 1 home run, 6 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 11 runs scored, a .458 average, and a .519 on base. So he's a second baseman, obviously, is India, one of the weakest positions in fantasy baseball. And like I said, right now, well, he's been white hot and one of the better hitters in all major leagues. He's a sell-high candidate this week. June 27th at the Cardinals, 2 for 4, run and RBI. June 28th at the Cardinals, 2 for 3. June 29th at the Cardinals, 2 for 5, a run, 2 RBIs. And June 30th at the Cardinals, 1 for 4. So India is playing great baseball, but like I said, a .450 average and an on-base percentage over 500 just isn't sustainable. So right now, well, he's putting up huge numbers, and he's a second baseman, like I said, where you could get someone good in the deal for him. He's a sell-high candidate this week. I'm not saying India is not going to end up with a great season, but like I said, he's playing way over his head with numbers that obviously don't stick at the end of the season. I would sell him off this week. I'm not dumping these players just for anything, but if you could get good value and players more of a track record, or especially a starting pitcher, where we've seen a lot of bad starting pitching this season and it's hard to come by in fantasy baseball, I would sell India this week. If you could get a good deal, sets a few hitters, I look to sell and trade for week 14 of the fantasy baseball season.